Welcome back to the Double Leg. I'm one half of the show, Hey Jai Picks. The other half of the show, the Parlay. Joining me in to recap some UFC Vegas 71. Sergei Pavlovich with the big knockout in the first round once again. What do you think of the card?
Overall, not the worst card, not the best card, but kind of a lot. I got a lot of takeaways from some of the fights, and obviously Sergei's 6 KO in a row being one of them. I mean, that's super impressive at any level. 6 first round, right?
Yep.
Yeah, 6 knockout in the first round in a row, and doing it against a guy like Blaydes, who has that wrestling pedigree. Doing it against guys like Tai Tuivasa, who's a knockout artist. He's kind of beaten all these different styles now. And we'll see if he's ready for the top, because at the heavyweight division, there's a big gap between number 5 and number 1. You know what I'm saying? So, it'll be interesting to see where he goes next, who he fights, if he sits there and waits for the winner of John and Stipe. And it'll be interesting to see how he does against a guy like John Jones or Stipe.
Yeah, super weird card overall. Like, you look at how many underdogs came through. The only favorites that won was Yasmin Lucindo and Norma Dumont. The 2 women's fights. So out of everything, those were the only favorites that came through, and Montel Jackson, but he was like minus 500, minus 6, so you kind of expect that. But the rest of the dogs came through, so it's just a weird card. Overall, I went down 2.5 units, full transparency, but honestly, I look at that and I look at how this card went. I'm like, yeah, I might have been okay, like just going down 2.5 units. The props stayed pretty good. I mean, not as good as they have been. 5-2 on the night for the props, but still swept the board on the prelims. 4-0 on Prize Picks for me. And I was looking at the stats today, and if you took every single under on significant strikes and every single under on takedowns, you would not have lost. It's fucking crazy. Like, it's nuts. I mean, there's a lot of fights that ended early. There was a lot of fights that there's a lot of like stalling, a lot of control time. So yeah, if you just took unders on every prop, significant strikes and takedowns, you would not have lost yesterday. And of course, the 2 that we got wrong were both overs. So yeah, we'll take that into account going into next week. Another Apex card. So
yep,
and look at that stuff and figure it out and look at it and really dive deep into like what's going on there. But yeah, just a weird card overall. Had the no contest and everything, couple of weird stoppages, but we will talk about that throughout the card. But we'll look at the main event first. We got Sergei Pavlovich and Curtis Blaydes. Pavlovich, when are they going to learn, man? You can't stand with Sergei Pavlovich. Like, he's going to knock you down eventually. He's got a granite chin on him. He showed it again last night. Curtis, he looked okay, like for the first minute or so on the feet, but you could tell every time that Pavlovich was throwing, like it was hurting Blaydes way more than anything that Blaydes would land on Pavlovich. Honestly, I'm surprised that it like was that easy. Like, I thought it would be a little bit longer of a fight. Maybe Blaydes can get him up against the cage or something. It's that forward pressure of Pavlovich that's like, people don't know what to do with that, because you got such a big dude walking you down, and if you get close to him, he just rips an uppercut at you. Like, you don't want to get close to it. But just a weird game plan from Blaydes. I expected a little bit more from him. What'd you think?
Yeah, no, same here. And I don't necessarily think he went in there with the game plan that I'm just going to stand and strike with this guy. I think that he was it was just, once you get in there with a guy that intimidating and that big like Sergei, who holds all the power, I think maybe he just couldn't find the right time to shoot. And once he did, it got stuffed easily. And to Pavlovich's credit, I mean, he had no regard for that wrestling at all. He was marching forward. He was going to throw what he wanted. And if you take him down, fine. But you could tell, he wasn't going to change his style or his game plan for Curtis Blaydes. Whereas Curtis Blaydes, kind of had to adjust to Sergei's style and, didn't really get any chances to get in on a double leg or even a single leg or any chance to get it to the ground. There was a first sequence when they started exchanging that Blaydes hit him, and he hit him hard with a straight right, and it kind of stunned Sergei, and he stopped right in his steps. And I thought, okay, is this the moment we finally see Pavlovich, try to overcome some adversity for the first time since that Overeem fight? but no,
Yeah,
he took 2 more steps forward and just laid Blaydes out. But yeah, no, it's a scary thought to think that he might not get beat by anybody else unless it's John Jones, in my opinion. I mean, John, obviously the GOAT, one of the best to ever do it, never actually been beaten inside the octagon. But these other heavyweights, if a guy like Curtis Blaydes with that type of wrestling can't go in there and get Pavlovich down or, do any kind of damage or control time, I don't see any of these other heavyweights doing it. I think the one thing that John Jones has over everybody else is obviously you go in there and you're lined up against a guy who is intimidating in his own right, being that he's the best to ever do it. He's more athletic than the other heavyweights. He's got a submission game. He can strike with the best of them, and he's really long, and he can wrestle. So maybe that's the one guy that gets Sergei out of there. But man, dude, he just blows my mind every time you see him in the octagon with that strength, his size, his speed too. I mean, the combinations are fast and they're accurate too. That uppercut he hit Blaydes with was right on the money. So all props to Pavlovich. I was on the side of Blaydes because the money was all on Pavlovich and he was still the dog. And it looked like a spot where Blaydes was going to shock some people as far as sports betting goes. Ended up down 1.75 units on the night. And I was literally a Bobby Green win away from being in the green, or Blaydes win away from being in the green. But yeah, man, some tough breaks last night, but we move on. That's all you can do.
Yeah, I need to see Pavlovich versus John Jones. I need to see it.
Yeah.
Like, don't even make the Stipe fight. Just give me John Jones versus Pavlovich. I need to see, like, how does John Jones figure out Sergei? Like, if there's anybody that can, it's John Jones. But then again, like, John was normally a 205er, moved up to heavyweight, put on a lot of size, good size, 3 years worth of getting there. I don't know, like, how do you even deal with Pavlovich if he's just gonna walk you down like that? I want to see it. I just want to see it, and I want to see if John can handle like that kind of power, because I don't think he's seen that kind of power from like any of the 205ers, or Cyril Gane wasn't able to throw anything at him really. So
right,
yeah, wild one. Brad Tavares and Bruno Silva. The real L in this one for me was the stoppage, because I thought Brad was there. He got knocked down, obviously, but I thought he was all there, and it looked like he was just going to lay down there to recalibrate himself and get his head right. And then Mark Smith, I think from his point of view, was like, thought he was out cold, and then went in and stopped it. There's not much you can do there, but it was looking like the over 10 minutes would maybe hit, but the significant strikes were racking up, and they were throwing pretty hard. So I don't know how much longer it would have lasted, but it was a decent fight for how long it did. Just disappointing that I think it's just a little bit too early. I think if you started raining down a couple shots from top, then sure, you could stop it. But like I said, I think he just thought he was out cold.
Whenever Bruno Silva landed that shot and Brad Tavares fell back, it looked like Mark Smith like took a step to the right and almost got in between Silva and Tavares, to where like Silva couldn't even follow up with ground and pound if he wanted to, and Mark Smith hadn't really called the fight off yet, so it almost looked like he was forced to call the fight off in some aspect. I could be completely wrong, just kind of what I observed, because the way Tavares fell, it's not like his head smacked off the canvas and his eyes are rolling back. He almost like landed on his elbows. Like he kind of got hit, rolled back. Definitely wasn't out by any means. So I would like to see it go a little bit longer. I think, Bruno could have followed up with some shots and got the finish. But at the same time, Tavares could grab a leg, survive, kind of like, Jeremiah Wells did. And then we see a 3-round fight. We rack up the fight time and the significant strikes, but is what it is. I was on Bruno Silva earlier in the week, and I talked myself off of him, which was super unfortunate, just because I thought maybe after that performance with GM3, maybe it was time he was slowing down, and we weren't going to see the same big knockout power Bruno Silva that we had in the past. So I laid off of him. Looking back, wish I would have, but what can you do?
Yeah, I was the same way. We kind of talked about it on the preview show. We're like, Bruno Silva, probably a live dog here. Big knockout power. And then It's one of those where you look back and you're like, fuck, dude, I should just went with my original thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah. Last thing I was going to say about it is, Mark Smith should know how tough Brad Tavares is in that situation too.
Right.
That's the thing that's most frustrating because normally Mark Smith's pretty good about gauging fighters and, their past fights, if they've, gotten knocked out badly or if they've been able to survive. And he just, bad stoppage overall.
Yeah, does play a factor. Bobby Green, Jared Gordon. Everybody knows the deal here. He was racking up the significant strikes, though, and that's what we were looking for there. I did have Bobby Green inside the distance, so I would have cashed that if they didn't call it a no contest. But ultimately, I did not because they did call it a no contest. I think it was definitely the right call to call it a no contest. Pretty clear headbutt. It looked like Bobby Green kind of got caught in between something and then was just kind of shot his head out there. and the other, or Jared Gordon's head was there and kind of put him out for probably a second and then woke up, or at least got back to his wits when he was on the ground, started trying to fight back, and then Bobby hit him with another shot and put him out. So, yeah, that's unfortunate for both guys, but honestly, for Jared Gordon a lot. I know you'll have something to say about that. What do you think?
Yeah, no, it sucks for Bobby Green, but if you look at Jared Gordon, man, he loses the decision to Patty, which I'd say 90% of the MMA community believes he won. I think he won that fight against Patty. So kind of a tough break there, because if you win over Patty, give him his first loss in the UFC, huge name, that does something for your career. He gets the loss. He comes in here against Bobby Green, has a kind of an opportunity to redeem himself. You beat a guy like Bobby Green with that big of a name, it does good for your career. And he, it takes the headbutt. I'm glad they called it a no contest for his sake, because if he takes that TKO, that's a robbery from the judges and then a headbutt knockout in the following fight. So it kind of sucks for him, thinking like, where do I go from here? Two kind of tough breaks in a row. But yeah, sucks for Bobby Green too, because, he probably didn't intentionally throw the headbutt, obviously. And he talked a big game. He was ready. He was fired up and he wanted that finish. So yeah, sucks all the way around. But my takeaway from the fight itself is that Bobby Green, I don't know if it's because he's getting older or what, but he's got to get the hands up because he's starting to get clipped in these fights. We saw it against Drew Dober, obviously getting flatlined like that. And then last night, there was a few times when Jared Gordon caught him pretty early too with some good shots. When in the past, he was able to shoulder roll and not take shots straight on. But as he's getting older, man, he's starting to get caught a little bit. So that made me a little bit nervous being on the Bobby Green side.
Yeah, one thing about that fight was like in the past, people will kind of pressure Bobby Green, and you see it in a lot of his fights where he just kind of sticks the jab out there and like pieces you up because you're pressuring him and just stays at distance. But Jared Gordon wasn't doing that. He was forcing Bobby to like come forward to push the action, and that's not really Bobby Green's wheelhouse. He kind of wants to stay on the back foot and like piece it apart a little bit. So would have been interesting to see how that played out with having to fight a different type of fight for Bobby.
Yeah, I could see a war coming.
Yeah. This one, Yasmin Lucindo and Brogan Walker. We don't need to spend too much time on this one. It looked really rough to watch. I mean, Lucindo didn't look bad, but Brogan Walker looked pretty bad, which maybe it could be part of Lucindo being good, but it looked like every time they engaged, she would just piece her up a couple times, and Walker had absolutely nothing for her, bro. That's about all I got on that one. But if you want anything else,
other than Yasmin Lucindo should have been a 10-unit max play. I mean, Brogan Walker, she's older. She's 34 or 5, just now getting into the UFC, kind of just now getting into the sport. Lucindo only being 21. She's got a high ceiling. I think her striking is good. She's really accurate. So she'll be good going forward. Other than that, fight played out exactly how probably everybody at home saw it going. So that's all I got.
Yeah, I was just surprised that Brogan Walker didn't go to like any kind of wrestling because she was just getting beats. I'm like, you gotta at least clinch her or something. Like, you're not gonna be able to stand with her at all. Bad fight. This one was very interesting. Jeremiah Wells, Matthew Semelsberger. Couple knockdowns from the boy Semelsberger. 11 minutes of control time from Jeremiah Wells. I'll let you take this one. What do you think?
It's the worst feeling in the world when you've got, your biggest play of the night on Jeremiah Wells, and he goes in there and gets cracked and dropped in the first 20 seconds. I don't know what he was doing running across the cage in the beginning, but he was met with that shot from Semelsberger, and from there, yeah, it was a pretty dicey fight. He was able to get the takedowns, and dude, he's so strong. It's unbelievable. I mean, being that much shorter and stuff than Semelsberger, when he locked his hands, Semelsberger was going wherever Wells wanted to take him. So that was really impressive. I do think Wells on the feet, man, not being that technical at this level, like fighting guys like Semelsberger, and as he goes up, is going to bite him in the ass. Because, dude, there was some times that made me really nervous holding a Jeremiah Wells ticket because he was getting cracked. Not the best head movement in the world, but, that strength and grappling has taken him far. Continued to do so last night. I mean, that's the only reason he won was because he's able to get in on the takedowns. Close fight. I do think Wells won. I saw a lot of people thinking Semelsberger won the fight. From a damage standpoint, Wells did really well on top when he got there, and then on the feet, obviously, Semelsberger was the better fighter there. So yeah, definitely a good fight though, fun to watch.
Yeah, it was a wild fight to watch. Like, I wanted it to go back to the feet because I had Wells inside the distance, and I just kind of wanted to see them throw. Like when they started that fight and Wells came out, just like sprinting across the octagon, throwing haymakers, and then he gets caught and dropped. I was like, damn, this is going to be wild. This one's not going to last very long. He was out. He was definitely out on the feet. Got woken up by Semelsberger, and then ends up on his back, but then ends up on top. He reversed position pretty well. As you said, very, very strong. Really good grappler on the ground, but just overall strong-ass dude, like explosive-ass dude, wherever the fight goes. And then round 2 comes out and he gets dropped again. I'm like, oh my God, this guy is he might be just better off just shooting the takedowns, and he figured that out. In the second round, he's like, all right, I'm done with this.
Yeah.
Just give me to the ground. But I was watching that first round, and I had the under significant strikes for 38.5. He put up like 39 in the first round.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, this is chalked. I just want a knockout, and he got a bunch of those significant strikes on the ground, and then fight's over. I chalked it up as a loss. We go back and look. The stat corrections brought him down to 36 significant strikes. So look at it, 36 significant strikes. We hit the under there. I was happy about that because you look at the total number, 86. I think his original significant strike number was like close to that. And then I think they went back and looked to like correct the stats. And a lot of those ground and pound shots was just Semelsberger covering up. So I don't think they count them if they hit the arms or anything, which is kind of dumb because like they're still significant to a degree. But
right.
Yeah, keep that in mind if you're looking at significant strikes. Christos Giagos getting the first round KO over Ricky Glenn. I had the under on Ricky Glenn's significant strikes, so I was happy about that. But other than that, I kind of wanted to get to Giagos all week, and I never did. Kind of wishing I did because he's been having some tough fights and losing them. And he came in as a dog against Ricky Glenn. One of those that you look back on, you're like, damn, should have pulled the trigger. What do you think?
Yeah, it's tough. I think the line, the betting line, and I should have seen this too and recognized it enough to place the bet on Giagos, but I think that whole line of Glenn being the heavier favorite came from that draw with Grant Dawson. And Grant Dawson's a good fighter. He got 10-8 him, 10-8'd him. I don't know how to say that. Had the 10-8 round against Grant Dawson in that third. Did Ricky Glenn. So I think that's where the line comes from. And then Giagos, hasn't had the best record of late. But yeah, Giagos is tough, man. He's fast and he hits hard. He's really strong. Found the chin. Definitely a good stoppage on that one.
Yeah.
I wish I would have pulled the trigger. And it's such a hard betting on the UFC is such a hard space right now with all of these underdogs cashing week after week. It's like you can't get any I mean, there's no room for error anymore. I mean, you can't pick a minus 150 favorite and be somewhat confident. I mean, they're not winning. Minus 150 to minus 200 fighters are not winning right now. I mean, you said it. What the only favorites to win last night was Montel Jackson, Lucindo, and
Norma Dumont.
Like, that's crazy, man. Some of those fighters too that are losing, like, it's crazy to think that they're losing as that big of favorites, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, you could count Wells and Semelsberger was basically a pick 'em.
Yeah,
Tafa and Usman was basically a pick 'em. So, the only 3 real favorites that came through were those.
Yeah.
Speaking of Montel Jackson getting the first round KO over Ronnie Yahya. Pretty nice, slick little left hand he landed on him. I had the under fight time on Montel, had him inside the distance. That was one of the only good reads, and it probably wasn't the hardest read to make on the card. So we got that one done. What'd you think of it?
Yeah, I had Montel Jackson by KO. Just because, I mean, you look at Ronnie Yahya, man, if he can't get the fight to the ground, he's not too dangerous. He's going to get hit, and he is older now. So that was my big thing for Jackson. I mean, it's kind of hard to gauge how good Jackson was in the fight just because of who he's fighting there. But, I mean, he's obviously a fun fighter, and he's going to be a fighter to watch. He's going to have some fun matchups coming ahead. So it's about all I got on that one.
Yeah, not too much to say. First round KO with the left hand, cracked him. Rosa and Norma Dumont, the immortal Norma Dumont coming through with the dub as the favorite. Honestly, I thought maybe could have gave it to Rosa, but man, this was quite the snooze fest. Other than that one knockdown from Rosa, just a lot of clinch time. Not a whole, like, when they threw pretty hard, but like, yeah, they didn't really throw that much. Like, they didn't really connect too much. 33 significant strikes landed for Rosa, 35 for Norma Dumont. So, I mean, in a 3-round fight, you're landing, 10 per round. So, yeah, I mean, women's featherweight could really use something. But what do you think?
Yeah, no, there's not a lot of fighters in women's featherweight division right now, and these two aren't exactly the most exciting, or at least at 145, they're not. There's a lot of, work up against the fence, hanging on for dear life. Both girls seem equally talented in the clinch, causing them both to kind of just stall and hold position. So overall, kind of a boring fight. I thought it could have gone either way. One of those fights, it's almost impossible to tell who actually won. So yeah, that's exactly why I didn't have a bet on that one.
Yeah, I only had the over 2.5, but it seemed like whenever they threw, if one of the girls landed, they would just go into the clinch. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you just landed a couple good shots and then you're gonna clinch up against the cage. It's dumb.
Yeah,
maybe that's the smaller the cage that it's like playing the factor of that. But I don't even know. I mean, maybe Rosa versus Dumont was worse, but this was a rough fight to watch, man. Like, I think everybody can agree. Like, this fight was shitty, bro. Like, we're just watching Mo Usman lay on him for 12 minutes of a 15-minute fight. He lands 7 significant strikes in a 15-minute fight where he had 12 minutes of control time. 7, and Tafa landed 22. The case for Tafa to get 2 of the rounds is definitely there. I think he definitely won the first. And I thought he was going to KO him, but just gave up 2 takedowns, and that's the story of the fight. But I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, we talked about, Tafa is going to be good when he's fighting against guys in space. But obviously there's levels to this whole grappling thing. And, Muhammad Usman, probably one of the most boring fighters to watch in the UFC outside of his last fight against Pauga with that left check hook. But man, like you said, 7 significant strikes for Usman, and he's got that much ground control and being on top for that long, and that's all he lands. I mean, Dana White's not going to come out and say he's pissed about it, but those are the type of fights that, don't sit well with Dana White and doesn't really catapult you forward for Muhammad Usman. So a frustrating fight to watch. Tafa, I wish the fight would have stayed on the feet because Usman obviously got the power to knock people out. Tafa skilled on the feet. You could just tell from the exchanges he had with Usman, but we didn't get to see enough. Kind of sucked. I hate that fight. That's all I got from it.
Yeah, I mean, a fair game plan for Usman to get the win, but Tafa kind of gassed after the first two, which played a big part in it. His ground game was trash. Like, he just couldn't get up. And it might have been a lot to do with him gassing out, but overall, just a really shitty fight to watch. Francis Marshall, William Gomis, another interesting fight to watch. Not a lot of action going on. Pretty low significant strike count again, especially from Francis Marshall. Hit the under there. But if you look at his significant strike accuracy, 11%. And my guy was punching air for a while. So if we look at that fight, Gomis came in from France. So he had to travel all the way over from France, comes over, misses weight. Francis Marshall comes in as near a 2-1 favorite. And Gomis gets the win, which was interesting. But just not a lot of action in the fight. Like, Marshall never found the range on the feet. He cracked him a couple times, not enough to like do enough damage, but found the home for that right hand a couple times, and then finally got the takedowns in the third round. Almost put him away in that third round, and I was screaming at the TV. I don't know how he got out of that. I thought when he had him flattened out, I thought it was over for Gomis, and I thought he had the sub, but survived and got 2 rounds on 2 of the judges' scorecards. So props to him. What do you think?
Yeah, I think those first 2 rounds they scored for Gomis just because, like, from the eye, like the naked eye sitting at home watching, it looked like Francis Marshall was struggling with that range. He couldn't find the shots. He was missing a lot, and Gomis was landing some decent ones. So yeah, I think 29-28 is fair for Gomis. But yeah, I mean, how he got out of that rear naked choke is beyond me, because he's flattened out. It's obviously under the chin, and then all of a sudden, he's not caught in a choke anymore. It surprised me. I thought the fight was over. I was just waiting for the tap. I know you were too. I know you wanted Marshall. But man, yeah, it's another one of those fights that earlier in the week I was leaning Gomis, not confident enough to put anything on it, just because of that length, and he is a decent striker, and he's a good counter striker. So, but yeah, overall, I didn't have much skin in the game there. So yeah, that's what I got. I mean, just 11% though on the significant strikes. The striking accuracy in general is just not going to win you fights.
Yeah, I was waiting for him to go to the ground for the whole fight, and then he finally did and found a lot of success there. But yeah, for the beginning of the fight, like, it looked like Gomis just wasn't throwing much back. Like, he was avoiding like most of the shots from Francis, but he wasn't really returning much. He would just kind of throw one here and there. If it was there, he was very cautious as well. So it was just a weird fight. First fight of the night, and the disappointment for us, we had Danaa for the free play, for the double leg premium free play. And it was looking good, man. I mean, he came out and dropped him, had a good first 2 rounds. We go to round 3. Both guys look like they're kind of tired. And then Hiestand gets the takedown with like less than a minute left and just starts hitting him. Not like they weren't raining down shots. He was just kind of like touching him, looking up at the ref, kind of probably forced his hand a little bit with that look. And it was a newer ref, like a ref that I haven't really seen before.
Yeah.
And I think he got a little gift there. I'm not going to lie. I think that was a little bit of a quick stoppage, maybe got in the ref's head a little bit with that look. But Danaa was gassed, and he didn't look like he like protested it too much at the time, but at the same time, he's probably just too gassed to protest it. So yeah, tough beat there. He's minus 1,000 going into like the first or the final 2 minutes. So I was feeling good about it, but what do you think?
Yeah, it sucks, man, because I think Danaa would have won a decision there. You just never know though with these judges. Had a chance to put Brady out in that round, and third round when Brady took the back and had him pinned up against the cage and was hitting him. I mean, those are tired punches. Those aren't significant, big, shots that are going to knock anybody out. I mean, I know Danaa was kind of stuck and didn't really have anywhere to go, and he was just eating them. But, I mean, they're not doing any damage at the end of the day. And with 30 seconds left in the fight, I mean, the ref is telling him, you got to fight back. I'm going to stop this fight. Give him 10 seconds to do so then. I mean, I know you said it a few times, but that last time you said, you need to fight back or I'm going to stop it. And right after he got done talking, he stepped in. It's like, man, it's frustrating. And like you said, new ref. I don't know. I don't know if Mark Smith stops that fight. Herb Dean probably stops the fight. But yeah, at the end of the day, definitely sucks to be on the Danaa side there. Brady Hiestand, I'm just still not impressed with him whatsoever. I thought it was a great bet to place against him, but what can you do?
Yeah,
It's one of those nights.
Got knocked down again.
Yeah,
Danaa knocked him down in the second round. I think he's a dog. I'll give him that. Like he comes to fight, but I think the skills could definitely use some improvement. He's 23 though, so I mean, can't get on him too much.
Yeah,
that's it for the card. What we got next week? UFC Vegas 72. An interesting card, to say the least. Another Apex card. Song Yadong, Ricky Simone headlining. 5 rounds there. And I think we got 12 or 13 fights scheduled in total. So we'll be back with the preview for that. Probably tomorrow or the day after. So stay tuned for that at the Double Egg on all the medias. You can stay updated there at HeyJivePicks on the medias for me. Where can they find you?
TikTok at the Parlay, Instagram and Twitter, the Parlay_media, and at YouTube, the Parlay MMA.
All right. Till the next video, Double Egg signing out.